Hi, it's Mr. Mike from the Mechanicsburg Learning Center with another edition of Dino-A-Day. Thank you for tuning in. We do this every day, Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. Uh, Dino-A-Day has been very interesting. This is our episode number 29, and we have done an awful lot of interesting dinosaurs, covered a lot of interesting topics. And today we're going to take a left turn and do something a little bit. Now, I apologize. We have a globe here, which I will be using for demonstration purposes. But the fact that we have our phone turned this way is a little bit odd and a little different. So if you want to see this in its true form, take your phone or whatever device you're watching this on and hold up a mirror to it and watch it that way so you can see everything facing the right way. Today we're going to depart a little bit from our strict coverage simply of dinosaurs and ancient beasts. We are going to mention one and talk about one briefly, but we would like to concentrate on something a little bit different today. And the different thing that we're going to concentrate on is a gentleman named ALFRED Wegener. He was born in 1880 and died in 1930 at the age of 50. He was born in Berlin, Germany, attended the University of Berlin, and got a PhD actually in astronomy. And over the course of his career, he traveled to Greenland because he became more interested in climatology and meteorology and finding out what was going on with the atmosphere, and very interested in a whole host of different kinds of sciences. But he specifically went to Greenland to study polar air circulation. Interesting thing too, some of the research that I've done said that good old ALFRED Wegener probably was a world record holder for hot air balloon rides, but back then they didn't have the Guinness Book of World Records. So he was also very interested in paleoclimatology, which is ancient worked. He noticed something very interesting at a young age that other people had noticed too, about all the maps that were drawn and all the globes that were made of the Earth. And as you look at the Earth, you'll notice a couple of things. First of all, you'll notice that there's an awful lot of water. The Earth is covered by about 67%. 67% of the Earth is covered in water, and the large majority of that water is salt water. I think like it's about 95% of that is salt water. So as you look at the different continents, you'll notice that, at least Alfred noticed that they seemed to kind of fit together like a puzzle. If you look here, and I'll tilt the Earth up a little bit from its normal axis, you'll see that here, for example, the edge of South America, and again, I apologize that you're looking at this differently because we're looking at it in kind of a mirror. This edge of South America seemed to fit perfectly into this area of what is Western Africa. So Eastern South America matched up with this little divot over here in South America. And folks thought, well, that's kind of interesting that they match up like puzzle pieces. And as you look around, other things sort of work too. North America would fit down nicely, and way over here, Australia would tuck up in near also and be a nice, interesting kind of a puzzle. So ALFRED Wegener noticed this, but there really was a lot of other folks that kind of noticed it too. But what they felt was that the reason that this occurred here, this big gap between these two pieces, is that what was once here had literally sunk into the ocean, like the ancient city of Atlantis, that there was land that was here that just kind of fell away. Well, Alfred felt that, nah, I think these two things actually matched up at one time. And he did the research and found out that there were species around the world that only existed in certain areas. So let's give you a look at ALFRED Wegener first before we go any further. Alfred, a nice looking man who I'm considering patterning my haircut after this is over with. Just like Alfred. There's a good look at Alfred. Chairman Alfred Wegener, who came up with this theory that at one time all the continents were joined. He actually came up with the idea and the name of Pangaea. Pangaea is the name we give to the gigantic landmass that existed millions, millions, billions of years ago, and then began to slowly break up and move into the continents that we have today. He didn't realize how it happened. A lot of folks did not go along with Alfred Wegener's theory at the time. They're like, well, Alfred, that's a great idea, but how did it work? And he never really cracked the code on why it happened. He just felt that it was too obvious. And based on the fossil evidence, he really felt strongly that this was how it all happened. He called it continental displacement, which ended up becoming called continental drift. He presented his theory in 1912. He published on it in 1915. And basically throughout the rest of his life, he continued to update it. It was called The Origin of Continents and Oceans. That was what his paper was called. So he continued to update it as he did more research and got more facts. But by 1930, this was 20 years before his death, by 1930, basically the theory was completely rejected by science. They felt that it had no merit because he really couldn't prove it. So the theory of continental drift, or continental displacement as he called it, kind of just sat there idly, waiting for someone to come along and take a look at it again. I remember as a child watching the movie Dr. Dolittle, the original Dr. Dolittle, and there was a scene in it that showed the animal, which was turned out to be a giant snail, was pushing these two land masses together. And the funniest scene was when one tree was rejoined with the other half of the tree in this particular scene. And as a kid, I was fascinated by that. And when I heard about this whole idea of continental drift, I hearkened back to the Dr. Dolittle movie and thought, it seems plausible, makes a lot of sense. So here's what happened, and here's why Alfred Wegener felt so strongly about his theory. Down in this area, let me again tilt this up for you so you can maybe see a little bit better. In this area of what is South America, there was a species found called Mesosaurus, or Mesosaurus. And they also found the same fossilized species over here. Interestingly, no other place in the world have they found Mesosaurus or Mesosaurus. And when you would take these two pieces and put them together, you see a real nice fit of how Mesosaurus and where it lived. Now, Mesosaurus turned out to be only about a meter long, 3.3 feet long. So it was a small crocodile-like reptile. It lived about 286 to 258 million years ago. And a 3-foot animal would not be able to make it across an ocean in terms of, it just physiologically couldn't do it. So here was evidence that said, maybe at one time these two land masses were really close together. And similar things were found in other fossilized remains. There was an animal called Lystrosaurus, which lived here and here. There was an animal called Cynognathus, same situation. It was found here and here on different continents, but only in very specialized areas. Same thing is true with a plant that was called Glossopteris. Same thing, where you could actually, if you put all these continents back together, you could literally draw a little pattern of where these things lived. So Alfred Wegener was just a bit ahead of his time. And it took until the 1960s for folks to look at this again and say, boy, this makes a lot of sense. And then they began to piece it all together, no pun intended, and realized that good old Alfred Wegener got it absolutely right. He couldn't say why it happened. He had theories. But now we know the whole story of plate tectonics and how things slide around. And they say that the continents do continue to move about 5 inches a year. So here is, once again, a look at Alfred with one of the animals, the Mesosaurus. Okay, the Mesosaurus that actually helped to prove the theory of continental drift and plate tectonics. In Volume 3 of Dinorific Poetry, I wrote a little story all about Alfred Wegener, and Ethan, who looks a lot like one of the President Bushes, actually, illustrated it when he was 13 years old. So the story is called Glance at a Globe the ALFRED WEGENER story. Go study a globe, any model will do, and realize its status is only a clue. Its past and its future, we just glimpse one frame. It's a marvelous movie, Earth's never the same. A man, ALFRED WEGENER, put forth a thought that continents once were conjoined, and he got no praise or respect for this groundbreaking view. They ridiculed, mocked him, and said, "That's untrue." Still, Alfred insisted that he was correct. In every mean-spirited slam he'd deflect. With every detractor he'd put up a fight, and many years passed till they found he was right. Our world's ever-changing, and here's the truth. It once looked quite different, and now we have proof. The continents were, in fact, one single mass, but since then they've drifted, but they didn't move fast. We named it Pangaea, one vast clump of land. Its size was stupendous, so much more than grand. Then this supercontinent started to split. Your globe is a guide to how each piece would fit. The north was Laurasia, a sizable chunk. Gondwana, a bit larger hunk. These land masses silently slid, slogged, and slipped, while gouging the ground as it groaned, grasped, and gripped. Al saw that South America lined up quite well with Africa's divot. If you look close, you can tell. And one ancient specimen helped prove his case that at one time these continents lay face to face. His theory had serious doubters until a beast, Mesosaurus, was found in Brazil. The Meso hung out in South Africa too, but that's quite a swim for this creature to do. So now we concur that a long time ago, these lands were so close that a small beast could go from one to the other, then swim back again. The evidence tells us this happened and when. So glance at a globe and you'll soon start to see how cool plate tectonics and science can be. The continents move, causing mountains to rise and seas to appear, all of various size. And now ALFRED WEGENER holds the esteem of people who maybe would not dare to dream. His out-of-box thinking was clearly correct, and now he is thought of with pride and respect. So here is a lesson that we all can learn. You may have a thought that your friends all will spurn. Believe in yourself, ask more questions, and probe, and just think of Alfred when you see a globe. There's Mesosaurus. The ALFRED WEGENER story, Glance at a Globe, from Dinorific Poetry, Volume 3, illustrated by Ethan, written by Mr. Mike. Well, thank you so much for tuning in live on Facebook. We do it every day, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for watching the videos. They're all available on YouTube at Mr. Mike Sgrignoli, so check that out, and don't forget to subscribe. I want to thank the Mechanicsburg Learning Center for making this all happen, and thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to share, and we'll learn again about something completely different tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. live, Eastern Standard Time, right here on facebook.com/MLCkids. Have a great day. Sooner or later, I'll get out of here. Bye.